is cheesy. The plot is stupid. I'm sorry, the plot is bad.
That's a little opening.
Happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to another edition of ARG Presents. I'm your fearless, boundless leader, Ming the Merciless, aka Amigo Aaron, joined by the Hurricane, aka the Brent.
Stand back. There's an ARG coming through.
Yeah, listen, I'm dropping hot hail all over the Hurricane, my friend. We've got an interesting show for you this evening because, much like Ming himself, this is about something beautiful but horrible. It's beautiful but horrible games this week, Brent. This is a category that we could have picked any number of games for. When it popped up on the Wii, I believe this is Nell Curtis Boyle joint, if you will. When you think of, and I know this game you picked was not couldn't have been the first thing that popped in your head.
No. The very first thing that popped in my head, is that what you're wondering?
Yeah, what was the first thing?
NES Dragon's Lair.
NES Dragon's Lair. That would not be the worst choice.
Yeah, that game looks incredible for an NES game, and it plays like absolute trash.
Yes.
But it's one that we've already covered.
Yeah.
So.
The first thing that popped into my head was Shadow of the Beast on the Amiga. A beautiful, beautiful game. That's not good. Some people it has its fans, but I mean, I like the game, but it's no good. Is the problem? You could also toss Shadow of the Beast 2 in there. Now they got it right with Shadow of the Beast 3. A number of other games popped into my head. The Brent, including stuff like Myst and Ribbon, and the Seventh Guest. These games that were all CD based.
Yes.
That looked like $1 million. When you saw the screenshots in the back, you were like, holy good God almighty, this looks great. Then when you load that sucker up and you see that you're just basically going through like an animated slideshow, it's always kind of a bummer to play those games. Also, that something else that popped into my head were the many FMV games. You sort of ragged on Dragon's Lair last week, but I think Dragon's Lair is a great game, and I think it's also beautiful. But there were plenty of those games that were no darn good, actually.
Well, here's the thing with Dragon's Lair and the likes is there was no gameplay there.
Yeah, there was. I mean, the game. No, there's tons of gameplay. It's a different sort of game.
No, it's quick time events.
That's game. That's a game.
No, see, I don't agree.
Listen,
I don't agree.
A hot hell, your opinion. Aside from what you mentioned, anything else pop in your head as a beautiful but bad game? I mean, there were plenty of games like in the PlayStation 1 and 2 era that would probably qualify.
See, I found this topic incredibly difficult to pick a game for. Because
really?
Yes. Normally the games I play, the graphics are absolutely secondary. Some of them look great. Now, if this was great games that look like garbage all night long.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
But
anything from the 8-bit era would qualify.
But reversing it, man, I struggled. I probably took longer to find the game that I found this week than I have. This might have been my longest look until I found something.
Why did you have so much trouble? There are tons of games out there that look great.
Because you've got two subjective things here, right?
Yeah.
Subjective thing one, does a game look good or not look good? Subjective thing two, is the game bad or not bad? And when you're fighting two subjective things to pick out the most of the subjective things of both categories, it's hard, man. It's hard.
I could have picked any number of Amiga games. Amiga is the system of beautiful but crappy games. The Amiga had just enough jack to make beautiful graphics with amazing sound.
And no one knew what to do with it.
Just enough naivete in the programmers to where they couldn't harness the power of the Amiga. And of course, they eventually got it figured out, more or less.
They got there in the end, yeah.
As me and Boat roll through the later games in the catalog, you do come across some that look great. You're begging for them to be good, but there's some game mechanic that they just can't get right that ends up making them unplayable in certain. Another one that popped into my head immediately was Rise of the Robots. And we hadn't covered that one. It'd be another one because I bought that one too. And when I got it home, I was so excited. And when I loaded it up, I was so baffled at the ability not to choose other players that I thought my game was screwed up.
Yes.
I reinstalled it multiple times. That's a shoot. Ming was not pleased on that day, the brand.
You know, if there was ever a category of best marketing for the worst games, that's number one with a bullet.
Yeah.
The marketing on that thing was so good.
And they went to the money bank
Yes.
and made a sequel that also did pretty decently, despite the fact that's what is amazing. That sequel did okay. You know, and I mean, it didn't do the blowaway business that the first game did. Think about it. That game was already earmarked for a cartoon.
Yeah, I know.
They were like, "This is going to be it." I read all those articles about how the AI would crush Street Fighter. It was all malarkey.
Yeah, it was Peter Molyneux was up the butt.
It's like
lies after lies.
This should be the honorary game for this category. You had to pick one. We've already covered Rise multiple times, but if I was going to pick a game that embodied what this category is all about, that's it. And I will say my game, to a certain degree, comes up short compared to the all-time master.
Well, Aaron, let's get into that. Let's take a look at one of our games here. Let's look at first FX Fighter, Aaron. This was your little baby, your claim to fame.
Yes.
This was all your fault.
Ming's eyesight's a little rough here. I'm going to put on these evil, diabolical glasses. Now, I mentioned to the people before the show, when I say that I buy games and I'm disappointed, I'm going to hold up Exhibit A. I don't have the box anymore, but here is the actual disc for you watching at home for FX Fighter. I own this bad boy. I bought it back in the day, and so I did in fact pick FX Fighter, released in '95 for your DOS machines. This was right at the cusp of Windows 95. So this was a DOS release. This is a GTE entertainment joint developed by developed by Argonaut. And we're going to get into that. But think about that for a minute. Here's a DOS game developed by Argonaut, who did so many great games on the Super Nintendo. I think there was Star Fox, one of theirs, some other ones. They did a lot of big titles. So you would think you would be in good hands with this particular title. What you've got here is a fighting game. No, what do you mean? Well, I mean,
it's a punishment simulator.
I want to take you back.
All right.
If I may, to the DOS. This is the PC of 1995, early 95. We're predating Windows 95 here, okay?
Yeah.
So, if you're someone who is a fighting game aficionado like myself, you've watched as all the consoles just load up.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great guns ablazing for a lot of these machines. And yet you're sitting here in the back of the room, and you really only had one good game, the fighting game to speak of at the time, which was One Must Fall 29/7. But it's not a looker.
It's okay.
It looks okay, but it's not 3D looker.
Oh well, I mean it is 3D, but
it's not 3D. No, it's not. It's not the least bit 3D.
The backgrounds.
Hot hell. Anyway, so I was desperate for a fighting game. I was desperate for one. And I bought such stalwarts as Pray for Death. It's another one I bought. And so when this came out, I thought, hey, this is going to be the one because it's going to have the 3D graphics I crave. Now, this predates sort of the real rush for the 3D graphics cards. And so what you got here,
barely, yeah.
So what you got here in '95 was sort of mostly software-based 3D, okay? Now, this game has a checkered past. And by the way, this did ultimately support some 3D, which we'll get into. So this game was actually shown off at I think it was E3 conventions. Excuse me, it was the Shinkai Software exhibit in Japan in November of '94. This was shown off, but it was a Super Nintendo title. Super Nintendo.
Interesting.
And it was going to harness the power of a up-and-coming chip known as the Super FX2 chip,
Yeah, makes
which was
sense.
going to be used to deliver polygon graphics that would be unattainable in a normal Super Nintendo. So you had you had to have hardware in the cartridge to make this happen. There's even about a 10-second or a 15-second video of this running on a Super Nintendo in an earlier beta.
Sure.
All right, and it was previewed. It was sent out to magazines to talk about. You know how they usually slip some stuff out. So this was previewed in Game Power. Uh, at the Winter Consumer Electronics Show in January of '95. It was announced that GTE Entertainment and Nintendo would be jointly publishing and developing the game. Right. Well, it all looked good. So then Nintendo was like, "Wait a minute here. We could jointly develop and produce this game, but this other company has a game coming out that looks like we will like it more." And that was called Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct on the Ultra 64. And so Nintendo was like, well, do we want to, and this was their reasoning. I think it's sound. Do we want to produce and develop two competing fighting games? The answer, my friend, is a hearty ho and a no. They did not want that. They were like, we're out. They cut ties on FX Fighter. So they sort of left Argonaut and GT Interactive holding the bag, as it were.
Nintendo likes to do that.
Well, they do that, don't they? And so this game was never released on the console that it was originally set to be on. So you're Argonaut. What do you do? Well, and I can't tell you for certain because I never read if this was ever supposed to be developed on the PC or not, like simultaneously. But I would wager if Nintendo's involved, the answer is no.
Yeah.
I would say no, it's not supposed to be developed. So what ultimately happened was late in '95 or middle of '95, they released this on the PC as a PC only title. So you'll only find this on DOS. I should mention it is part of the brilliant Exo DOS collection. If you have that now, I mentioned that it does. There was a little bit of 3D in the box. So it was an early 3D game that would in fact eventually support the Diamond Monster 3D, which is a very early 3D card. I remember seeing this video card at shows, and it would be bundled with some games. This is not one of them. I believe the games that bundled with were like, seemed like they were like, it was like Virtua Fighter 1 was one of the games that was, and it looked good. This was much like the FX2 chip. You're going to get performance out of the Monster 3D that you would normally not get. So this is early days for 3D cards.
Sure.
I remember going to just a sidebar, but I remember going to these shows. I used to go to a lot of computer shows, and because you get cheap hardware, and I remember seeing the wave of 3D cards come out, and I was always a little leery of the way they hooked up because you ran your video through them, which I was like, man, that's weird, you know. And I never bought one until Banshee came out and they combined the two. But it's funny when these cards came around at first, it was just Diamond. You're like, oh, look at this. And then by the next time I went to a computer show, everyone and their brother was making some knockoff, and to varying degrees of success. I mean, some of these 3D cards are real freaking obscure that probably never.
It's like works with this like two games.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
I should also mention that the people have mentioned that there was a they had at some point they had released the Sega Saturn on a card. Remember that?
Yeah.
I have seen that at some of these shows, and I thought to myself, man, that seems kind of harebrained there, you know. But I guess it worked okay. So I wish I'd bought one. Now I'd be in the money. So let's talk about the game, FX Fighter. It features 8 characters, 8 different arenas, and a multitude of different attacks, and plays on a 2-button gamepad. Now, this game was released with Gravis gamepad support on the board. That's what that was on the box. They said they wanted you to have it. So the plot of this game, it's not what I would call
irrelevant.
Well, I mean, listen, as Ming the Merciless, I endorse this plot. It's right up my alley. But as Aaron, the reviewer, it's kind of generic. So if you'll indulge me. So you are summoned to a tournament with this guy named Rigel. Rigel is a green fellow who wears a blue jumpsuit with a red stripe. He's a pretty style. It looks almost like a human race car. He challenges the best fighters in all the solar system to fight him. It's almost like they fight for pink slips.
Yeah.
Except instead of getting someone else's car, you get to blow up their planet if they lose. Let me tell you something. Having looked over some of these fighters, if this is the guy nominated to save the planet, start packing your bags. So anyway, he drives around the universe in this planet that looks like it looks like the end of a warhammer or a mace. It's basically a ball.
Yeah, it's a big spike ball.
And by the way, the gimmick is if you beat Rigel, you get his planet. Why? I know it's like a Death Star or something, but it looks dumb. Rigel's planet's a dump. Anyways, you've got as the game opens up with this speech he gives, he stops talking and just goes like this. He's got his hand raised, like I'm the man. It's a real stupid ending to the speech. And then what I like the theme from FX Fighter comes in. This theme is the dopiest theme. It sounds like you're heading to the carnival or something. It's like, and then it shows. Do you remember when little videos of fighters was like in vogue?
Yes.
It sounded like what
Killer Instinct did it. Yeah.
But so every fighter has a little 15-second repeating clip. There's a cat girl. She's like, man, and there's a robot who's spinning around. These little guys shooting fire. The clips play, and they're pretty dopey looking. And then the game starts up, and then the game's options are pretty limited. You got one player tournament. Your options. There's not a whole lot of what I would call big time options in this thing, but you can in fact pick. You can say how many rounds, your difficulty, that sort of thing. You had CD sound off of this on top of some of the stuff they put built in there. So then you pick your character. Now, listen, this is a hodgepodge of characters, and I want to talk about some of these guys. This sort of makes the game. So listen. These are pretty original characters to Brent. You got Magnon from Planet Inferno. Listen, the horribleness of this pleases Ming, because Ming was around in the 20s. This is right up his alley. Guess what kind of planet that Inferno is?
I'm going to guess ice.
Wrong. Primeval volcanic wasteland, it says here. Then you got Sheba, from Rom, and she's the cat chick. Then you've got
of course, going off the Egyptian theme.
Then you got Venom, spelled cool guy style. You got Jake. Jake was my guy because I thought to myself, you've got a game with Magnon and Serban. I'm going to pick Jake. I'm just going to pick Jake. Jake's just a generic guy in a t-shirt. You got Siren. She's sort of like a mer chick. All right. Then you've got Ashraf. And then you've got Sibin. And then you finally got Rigel. Okay. This is what I would call a pretty standard cookie cutter output of fighters.
Yeah.
There's a water chick. There's a fire guy. There's like a Arab mystic guy. There's a cat chick. There's they didn't reinvent the wheel.
And they're all standard humanoid folks.
Well, no, no. There's a guy that's like a praying mantis.
Yeah, but he's still 2 legs, 2 arms.
And there's also the Magnon.
He's
Magnon,
still
he's
2 legs, 2 arms.
I mean, yes, they are. And so now, if I wanted to mention this, that the category this week is beautiful games that were horrible. Okay, when you look at this game in 2023, it looks not good. Okay, you're going to look at it and think to yourself, my God, how did Aaron pick this? He's an idiot. Let me tell you something, and you may or may not be able to back me up with this, but this was quite an attractive game in its day.
Yeah.
For people that were hungry for an attractive game.
It was
their fighting game when they're on there. Now, it's funny because Virtual Fighter and the Mortal Kombat series, they all came out on DOS, and they were good. They looked good. They played well. But this was early on, and we wanted that 3D game.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned this game had 2 buttons. Okay. The 2-button system actually worked pretty well. I think it was proven in One Must Fall that you could do a lot of stuff with 2 buttons, and this thing did even more. Because this game features a lot of moves, doesn't it, Brent?
Yeah, well, I mean, if first of all, if you can pull them off.
Right. Well, so I hadn't played this for a while, so I sat down and with the moveset open for Jake, and I played Jake. So here's the first word of advice. Okay, the first thing you do is you go and lower the difficulty, and you lower it down to at least 2.
No, you got to go all the way, and it's still going to kick your butt.
No, I beat the game at level 0.
Well,
Well, I'm just saying I did. And then I moved it up to 4, which is a standard. And on 4, you get like there's a guy in this game, I think it's Asroff. He's like a mystic or whatever, like an Arabian type guy. He's got this move where he just goes like this, and looks like he's going to shove you, and he uses like the power of mental thinking to shoot you back across the room, like like you're in a John Woo flick. And a couple of those, and you're out of the ring.
Yeah, because this is a ring out or knockout situation.
And this right here is there's 2 main reasons why this game is beautiful but horrible. The first reason is the frame rate at any level, under any circumstances, is garbage.
Yes.
It runs like garbage. This is 2023. I've got an Abacus that can run this game. I've got everything that can run it now, and it still runs like crap.
Yeah.
Under all settings.
It was very poorly optimized.
It was not ready for prime time. And secondly, the AI in this looks at the Mortal Kombat AI and laughs. This AI could crush Street Fighter. I believe it.
Well,
on the normal settings when you start the game, you are in for a pounding, the likes of which you've never seen, because the game hates you. It doesn't give you a chance to even breathe.
No.
I didn't go past 4 because I think it's up to like 9.
But what's the point?
Because at 4, you've got a 0% chance of getting past the first guy.
Yeah.
And I would like to meet the man that can do it. I would shake his hand because it is so difficult. The characters themselves, if you look at their move sets, they've got special moves. They've got projectiles. They've got combos. They've got juggle combos. There's a lot of stuff in here. It wasn't like they just threw in some crap and said, hey, here's our game. They put some time into this, probably because it was going to be in Super Nintendo, so they knew they were going to be up against some hardcore stuff. And so that's what makes the game doubly sad, is the fact that the moves are there, the characters are okay, though, and it looks nice. It's a fully 3D, but it just plays horribly, and it is no fun.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
No, pretty much the exact same thing. The difficulty on this is, and it's not because the AI is smart or anything like that. I guarantee
it's relentless.
It's reading inputs, because there are times normally you can find tactics to cheese the computer. If you keep doing a sweep at this certain distance, he'll always stand up. No, none of that, because you never get a chance to find anything. The difficulty is off the charts on anything except for Bonehead. And on Bonehead, they literally do nothing. So
Bonehead was easy.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, like I said, I put it on level 2, and I could beat an occasional guy occasionally. The Indian guy, like you have no chance. Once they get you down, you don't even get a chance to get up and do anything.
No.
It's a full court press, speaking of Kurt Rambis, and you can't do anything about it. And it sucks. It's depressing to me. And you think to yourself, I will say Argonaut's not what I would call known for their fighting games. So maybe this was a bridge too far for them. But I mean, how could you release this? Someone had to have played this and thought to themselves, there's no way we can send this out in this state.
I don't think that was even on their radar. I think this was all about make it look pretty for the box art and get it out the door.
Well, I think you might be right.
And does this game look pretty? Yes. Yeah, this is a pretty looking game if you're looking at it on screenshots. You can really make this look well. Or even if you've got it running, they're little clip movies, they're little basically cinematics.
Yeah,
those look fine. But when you're actually in there controlling the guy, making the movements yourself, the game struggles, and it struggles mightily. It struggles mightily.
I agree. The funny thing is, Brent, and here's some, it's funny, just to do this show, You think you know it all, but you don't know nothing. You're dumb, in fact. So this game, they were so sure that this was going to be a big deal that GTE Interactive, or GTE Entertainment, I should say, shipped, according to Wiki, 200,000 units of the game to stores and paid $2 million for a promotional campaign. That's how sure they were this would be a hit. All right. Now, I think they were blinded by the niceness of it, the beauty of it.
Yes.
And I don't have any idea how well this sold. We know that they shipped to stores 200,000 units. I would be surprised if it sold that well.
No.
But get this, the Brent. Here's what I didn't know. First of all, the reviews on this were great. Like, people loved it. If you could believe that.
I can. It was a different time.
It was, and I can tell you right now, because a lot of people could definitely listen to this, and some of these from people that we respect. Entertainment Weekly gave it an A-. Okay, I'll buy that. They're idiots.
Yeah.
Next Generation rated it 4, and I like that magazine a lot. Rated it 4 out of 5, and now get this, they stated that even without the spectacular visuals, FX Fighter would be better than Mortal Kombat 2, and that's saying a lot. That's what they said.
Yeah.
It is not. And the PC version of Mortal Kombat 2 is way, way, way better than this. And Computer Game Review gave this a positive rating and called it worth checking out. I'll give maybe that's the best one. There was also a comic book based on this, which was not good. So I looked at it. So get this. Here's the part I didn't know. This had a sequel.
Really?
I didn't know this. I'm me. I thought it was good. They had FX Fighter Turbo. Okay. No, it's a real sequel. So again, this was the Argonaut Games. This came out for Windows 95 at this point. And this is at the end of 96 they released this. And so what did it have? Well, it had like extra characters, costumes, different environments, special effects. It had more support for 3D cards. And it released, like I said, it had two new characters, and it had a form of Mortal Kombat style fatalities. So this was a pretty it wasn't just like they pumped it out with a little more action. They actually did stuff to it.
Well, it sounds like they pumped it out with a little more action.
I have never heard of this game.
I haven't either.
And it's not part of the Exodus collection, so I'm going to look into it.
I wonder if it ever actually released.
No, it released. So that's if you've got a copy of this, you'd be in for something. Brent, I got a couple of reviews here I've got a review from our good buddy Pajako. Pajako chimes in. He says, clearly designed as a 2-player game because 1-player game is as cheap as they come. I agree.
Yep.
AI opponents that from the first match can pull off every move flawlessly will attack as soon as you get up, leaving you little time to do anything else. Get used to seeing the words ring out.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the matches will end up with you being knocked out of the ring. The moves are limited, but for 2 buttons is not a bad selection. However, they seem quite hard to pull off most of the time, and the grapple moves are next to useless as the AI would get there first most of the time. I'm no superstar at fighting games, but I've done okay in the past even with arcade fighters that are designed to take your money. I could knock the difficulty down, but I feel the standard difficulty is too hard to get past the first opponent or two, and then it's done wrong. For a 1995 PC game, graphically, this is pretty good. I'm sure it's no Tekken or Virtual Fighter, but it runs okay. The audio is pretty good, and the story and the dialogue is cheesy, but heck, it works. I genuinely thought I would like this and would improve, but the game doesn't give you a chance. So I gave up. 45 minutes of losing is not my idea of fun. Sorry, Planet Earth, but you are doomed. 4 out of 10.
Yes.
He brings up some interesting points here, and especially if someone comes into this game never having seen it. It is not a Tekken or a Virtual Fighter, but it is.
Well, I mean,
it is a game that
it follows the same format,
right? But in its time, when I saw footage of this, I couldn't believe how awesome it looked.
Right.
The problem is, it looked good. You see the theme here?
Yeah.
But it was a stinky, stinky bad game. So 2 big thumbs down for Virtual Fighter or for FX Fighter. I would like to try the sequel, see if they've done anything to make it better. And also adding the early 3D support was pointless. It would be interesting to see if what the second one did with a additional maybe if the 3D
better cards, yeah.
Being smoother would help, but the AI is ultimately where this thing totally tanks out.
Yep.
Disappointing, the Brent.
Yeah,
Disappointing.
I would agree. Now, Aaron, I obviously went on a search, a dedicated, lifelong drive to find a beautiful but horrible game, and I don't think I did a good job. But I did find a game that I've never heard of, an arcade game I'd never heard of, and to me, that's something. I want taking a look at Space Lords. Aaron, Space Lords. This, had you ever heard of this? I know you hadn't because you already told me you hadn't.
I had not ever heard of this. And when you picked it, I was baffled. How did I not know about a game from Atari? It angered me. I'm honest.
Aaron, Space Lords, an arcade-only game that's got no home releases. None. Zero. Zilch. Zip. Nada.
It would be
that
hard to release
never
this
happens.
Yeah, this would be
That never happens.
This one has too much jack for the home market.
Released in 1992 by Atari Games, you could not get this as a single cabinet. This was a joint cabinet. They were fused together.
It was like the Cyberball / wrestling cabinet, the ones that like the double screen and double. It
had one marquee goes across both machines.
Think Cyberball because it's also each control panel has two controllers.
Yes. Aaron, these cabinets could be linked to another set of cabinets, allowing for 8-player arcade action.
I like it.
I bet
that didn't happen too often.
Very rarely saw. I mean, I can only think of a handful of games, and in fact, 8 players. I don't think I can think of any other arcade game you can play with 8 players like that.
Oh,
outside of like horse racing, betting games, and crap like that.
It's not something you see every day. And I mean, if you think about it, all the Sega racing games you can play with 8 players.
Oh, you mean like the Daytonas?
That's right.
Right.
I thought of one.
This is a space-based arena combat system. If you are playing by yourself, you take the role of the pilot. And you can actually play this in multiple different ways. You can play where it's literally just an arena, and you are not like in the sense of you can see boundary walls. It's not like that. It is you versus everyone else. Everyone's just out there trying to kill everybody else. You can also play as teams, and you can play as up to 4 sets of teams. Or you can play the story mode, the campaign, where you just have missions, and all the missions are just kill X amount of aliens.
That's the one I play.
And go on with your life.
Well, I did try the other mode.
But Brent, 8 players, does everyone have the same role? No. If you play this with 2 players, now you can have just both players be pilots, or the way the game's intended is one person's the pilot, the other person is the co-pilot / gunner.
Yeah.
And if you do this, you actually get special eerie powers that you can't get if you're just piloting alone.
They're not that special. You get one extra like nuke, and you get like
no, you get a whole different maneuver.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's not like they're not that eerie.
No, they're super eerie. So your standard guy, your standard pilot can shoot and nuke. He's got a flight stick and a thruster yoke where you can go push it forward. You go forward, you pull it back. Your ship will back up. You have a look behind you button, which does exactly what it says. It will look behind you and will give you the ability to shoot backwards. But your co-pilot, and you've got a hyperspace button, which will literally, it's a la asteroids. You hit it, you end up somewhere else in space. Your co-pilot has a joystick, no thrusters, but where the pilot is locked onto the center of the screen when he shoots, because his joystick's for moving the ship, the co-pilot has free reign of his turret. So you can shoot, you use it to move your cursor all over the screen, which is super powerful in this game. He also has a hyperspace button, but if he hits his hyperspace button and his other special button, which replaces the look backwards, you hyperspace cloaked. You actually turn invisible, which for a game like this would be super useful. The other mode in this game is to adjust your ship. You can adjust your thruster power, your shooting power, things like that. Also, this game is microtransactions out the wazoo.
They were spearheading the evil of that. I enjoy.
Because you can put in more quarters to get more nukes and more power.
Yeah.
Normally, when you raise up like attack power, maybe your threat, everything else goes down.
Yeah.
So you can kind of play with that balance.
Again, it reminds me of Cyberball, where you can just like get better guys than
Yeah.
your opponent.
Yeah.
And the game was okay with that. Your opponent, on the other hand, probably not so happy with your maneuvering.
The other thing is, after when you're out there fighting, if you die, you can quarter up and you'll just fire right back up.
Yeah.
Which would not be fun if you're playing with a bunch of other people at a death match or something.
You wouldn't be dead.
So how does this game play? This is an elite style system of flying and shooting. I'm not saying it's as good as an elite, but you've got that cockpit view where you've got your radar in the middle, your crosshairs in the center of the screen, and it gives you fairly decent control of your ship. The arenas that you are flying through are full of ship-sized asteroids that if you hit, you can't shoot them and break them apart. If you run into them, your ship takes an immense amount of damage. There are also tons of nebulas, and if you go into a nebula, you will get randomly teleported somewhere else in the arena. I mostly played this single player, and I'm guessing you did as well. Yeah. The missions, the way the missions are structured is you have an alien race that you're up against, and it might be kill 15 of this alien race. And there are 6 or 8. I'll have to make a quick check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 alien races, and they all have different looking and controlling ships. So the AI actually gives them better ships. That's how you improve. That's how there's multiple enemies. And in the missions, in the beginning, you were fighting one type of alien per mission. And if you get high enough, the aliens start joining forces and will attack you with 2 aliens at a time or 3 aliens at a time. And they've got those different ships that have different abilities. Does it matter? A little bit. Because, some ships, the beginning ships are very slow and they don't have a whole lot of firepower and they're not hyper jumping and they don't have nukes. So they're far less of a threat than some of the other aliens that do have all those things. And then you are in deep trouble. This is obviously a arcade game because it will let you play for a while, and then it will it just says, "Okay, you're done. It's time to quit."
Your health slowly is depleted no matter what you do.
Yes.
So in the Atari Gauntlet tradition.
Yes, and here's something I found a little bit funny, Aaron. I looked at the manual for this game, and if you're flipping through, it's a huge manual. First of all, it's like 80-some pages. In the back, it has places where you can track your stats, and which is very common for arcade games to have this. But it has a section to record how long people have played the game on a single credit.
Yeah.
So its first thing is like from 0 seconds to 19 seconds. All right. The chart maxes out at 200 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is a little over 3 minutes.
Yeah. They don't expect a lot of play time.
So they are expecting you to die and die often.
Well.
And they're right.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately,
Although I ran out of time a ton of times.
Yes.
So it's not like that was unheard of.
For 1992, this game, in my opinion, looks amazing.
Yes.
The explosions, the ships, the smoothness of all the things that are going on, the space outlook has the very Atari feeling graphics, which is I love Atari in this era in the arcades. The enemy ships, they're all polygonal and they do well. Also, in presentation, every alien race has a little photograph that will pop up, and when you blow them up to show what kind of alien they were, all of those little type of touches, very nice.
Yes.
Very nice. Where this game falls apart for me is being repetitive is its job. Holy cow. If you had 8 friends, or even 4 friends sitting around, I bet this would be incredible fun.
That's you out.
All right. So when you are trying to play this by yourself and you're going through the missions, it is so boring. So boring for a game that looks so spectacular. And shooting the ships it takes such precision. It is so frustrating on top of being boring. I played this. I tried to like this because I found this. I thought, holy crap, 92? That looks amazing. I've got to try this. And after I played it for a while, I was like, man, this fits this category so well.
How did you come across this just for this week?
Yes. I'm telling you.
You really looked into one.
Well, I really, like I said before, I really researched this. I really struggled on what I was going to pick. And this, I think, so fits the category. Aaron, what did you think of Space Lord?
Space Lord myself, it's not easy running a fleet.
Oh, that's good, because you only have one ship.
With all that said, at first, I looked at this game and I'm like, my Lord, I would like to make this one of my mini wives. It's a beautiful game, and you're right. For the year, it looks real nice. It moves smoothly. The ships look good. In fact, the ships almost move. They remind me of the ships in Asteroid Belt to a certain degree, the way they moved. I mean, which is a compliment.
Yeah, I was going to say, except, not sucky game.
One of the things that hampers the home play on this is that you really need to play this with the arcade controller.
Well, you can play this with a yoke or with a thruster thing,
right? Which I don't have.
Oh.
And so what I had was just like the keyboard and mouse and some joysticks. I did my best. And I eventually rigged it up, but this would be played because going backwards is something you would do a lot in the arcade, and it's not something you would do that often with your home rig, for example. I like the idea that you could have a co-pilot as well. Now, with all that said, and this is what makes me want to dump hot hail all over this game, is that the game is too freaking it's put together incorrectly. All right. I'm going to compare this to Wings. All right, the game on the from Cinema on the Amiga.
Okay.
Another game where you effectively drive around in a vehicle, shooting enemies as they fly by, and you try to pursue them. Okay. In Wings, like eventually you could get to the point where you could shoot these guys. In this game, there's a lot of them not even and also like if you play Wings, sometimes the guys are just off your forward view, but you're getting there.
Yeah.
In this game, you're not even close. They're long gone, and you're being peppered. You've got a radar, and you're being peppered occasionally by things. You've got no idea where they're at. It doesn't look like there's anyone near you. It's like, why am I getting hit? I don't know what's happening. The radar doesn't tell you if the asteroids are either. So if you're hauling butt to that took me a while to get used to just not ramming stuff.
If you're looking behind you, then you hit an asteroid.
Right. So that kind of got irritating. But really, to be honest with you, what I wanted a game like this is like the original Atari Star Wars, where there's stuff flying hither and yon, and you're shooting and you're going through the explosions and you're having a good time. I don't want a semi-realistic, strategic dogfight simulator. Dogfight simulator bad. Real cool arcade action good. It's an arcade game. The opening screen is who thought that was a good idea? if I put 2 quarters in this sucker, that opening screen came up with all that. It's not good at telling you what you're looking at.
Yeah.
The opening screen in this is, I mean, it's the worst. I'm going to say this. This is the worst opening screen in the history of arcade games.
Oh, it's not that bad, but it's bad.
Show me another one that's more confusing. This doesn't have, this is like,
Cyberball.
no, you're nuts. Cyberball's 1,000 times better than this.
It's the same concept, though.
Cyberball has words in it. Use your words, Space Lords. This is just like, it's no good. So it took me a while to figure out, what am I looking at? The fact that you can go and fool with your ship ahead of time, it's in there.
Yeah.
You know, the fact you can have a co-pilot, but I mean, it's horribly explained.
It's not the
You can tell the guys at Atari, they're great at making video games, but they're terrible at doing menu-driven stuff.
Yeah.
No good. The fact that the guys are too hard to hit, like there are things that I really like. The nebulas are kind of fun to go through. You know, the nukes, the explosions look good.
Well,
all that stuff looks good. The lasers look good.
You can pay more quarters to get more nukes, and nukes are way, way, way easier to kill your enemies with than lasers.
Yeah, because you just have to get them somewhere in the ballpark. But the truth of the matter is, I think this game, because I'm killing it, killing it. But I suspect that if someone were to sit around and really get good at this game, if I had the control panel in front of me, I found a guy online who owned this, and him and his son were playing the original version.
Yeah.
And I was watching him, and his kid was just killing it. And he kept going backwards and forwards, doing stuff. We can't do that as well. So this is one of the several games that were out in the arcade that don't control well at home.
Well, if you dedicated, you could hook this up with a flight stick and a yoke, I keep saying yoke. It's not a yoke. It's a thruster. And have a very arcade-like experience. And people have those things. It's not outside of the realm of possibility. A lot of people have those type of sticks. I think it goes farther than that, though. This game is fundamentally... I think when they made this, they didn't say, all right, how can we make this game better? I think they said, how can we make this game more profitable? Because all the flaws, all the little gotchas in this, I think could have been fixed, but they wanted it to be hard to shoot so you would buy more nukes. They wanted you to want a more powerful ship to keep up with your opponent so you'd put more money into it. And they wanted you to have a co-pilot that could shoot anywhere on the screen, which I don't know if you played around with the co-pilot stuff, just had the pilot sitting there. It's so much easier to shoot things when you're not shifting the whole world around trying to line this crap up.
I did try the dog fight where you just take on one ship. That was so horrible.
Yeah,
I didn't know if I was doing it right. Because not only can you never, ever see the opponent's ship, and the MING means never, but I would sit there for like the whole time waiting for something to happen, and like finally the computer meandered over to me and blew me away after a while. But I mean, it was no good. We did not like that part either.
Aaron, what do you think? First of all, I don't know how well this did out in the market. Replay Magazine,
I would say poorly.
Replay Magazine says this was the 7th highest grossing machine the month it was released.
There you go.
And here's the thing: 7th for a month is bad,
especially when it's your first month of being released.
Yeah.
92 is not what I would call the top line arcade time either.
This thing was big and it was heavy, weighing in at over 580 pounds for the unit. This took up a lot of floor space, and if you had 2 of these bad boys,
you were no one on earth.
You literally have to make the income value of 4 games to justify taking up all that floor space.
I will say, if I lived in like if I was not stuck on a ship and I had a luxurious mansion, okay, this would be a great game to own and have at home, because there's probably a lot of multiplayer, 4-player value with this. I think you could go in there and tweak the dip switch.
And this is very tweakable for difficulty and stuff like that. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I think this was a beautiful game, and I'm sure there are people out there that have incredibly fond memories of it,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't think it played well at all.
We did get a review on this, the Brent, again from our good buddy, the Pajockster, 6502, who chimes in, Space Lords. I had a real deja vu playing this. I think I might have played this once before, but I have no clear memory of it.
I've never seen this in an
Me either.
arcade.
Oh, no. I actually quite like this game, but it gets old fast, and it's a coin muncher supreme.
Yes.
The graphics for 92 aren't that bad. It looks nice, but what I didn't get was the feeling of flying through 3D space. It still felt very much like a 2D game. Even the most unskilled can make progression by just paying for it, and that is enough to keep you going. And if you truly suck, which I did, then the game reduces the enemies needed to clear around, which is nice. I also like that you can modify your ship, which is neat for an arcade game. The accuracy needed for shooting enemy ships is too precise, and some of those aliens can move a lot faster than you, which really took some of the fun away from it for me. I will say, Brendan, I was wondering if you're going to mention it, so I will mention it. Oh, let me finish this review. The audio, sorry, there was more. The audio is classic 90s Atari arcade, and I love the dry humor of the lady narrating my poor pilot shows. By the way, the chick reminded me way too much of that chick on the Jaguar.
Yes.
Although this chick was way less irritating. I found that the best way to play this was to fly back and forth, just nuking the living heck out of groups of ships chasing you. But overall, I had fun for around an hour of my time, so it was worth it. 7 out of 10. I wanted to go. I looked this game up because I was so baffled. This game was produced. It was made by Ed Long of who's done a lot of stuff. I believe amongst his, I think, was Asteroids and Battlezone. I think was his as well. This has the feeling of a realization of a 3D Asteroids game.
Yes.
In some ways, because you could careen. And by the way, why do we keep fighting these battles in the middle of these asteroids? But this game is it's too greedy. They dropped the ball. They got too greedy, and they forgot to put the fun in this game. I think the game has potential. I think the engine has a great potential. It's a beautiful game. This embodies this category of beautiful but horrible.
I'm glad that you agree with that because I had a vision in my mind that you'd come in here and be like, "This game's too fun to be horrible."
No, in some ways, this reminds me of what was the very original video game, was it Space Wars or whatever, where you had multiple people fighting in space.
Yes.
And I remember the controls for that were real convoluted and weird too, and it's a weird game. This is like the amalgamation of several different genres of space game. The problem is they just didn't make it fun enough.
Yes.
And really, if you think about games like this, I mean, let's think about any game from Wing Commander to something like Wings to any of these games where you're actually dogfighting in space. One of the problems that they have is space is a big, empty, black void,
and you got to fill it with something.
And there's a ton of room out there. And sometimes it's just and it's hard to match, and that's where you give something like an X-wing credit, for example.
Yeah,
they took or Free Space did it as well. They took something that could be blank and huge and tough to deal with. They gave you all the simulation controls that you need to match speed, to match course. Give you missiles and stuff that were seeking targets. Stuff like that makes a big difference when you play these games because you don't want to. And even in this game, where there's tons of stuff out there, there's not a speck of black on the screen hardly, but you still feel like you can't ever get to anyone.
That's it,
and that's frustrating.
It is.
And also in space games, how often do you? I mean, I know this. Listen, in real
the
space,
Lone Warrior.
No, how often are you throwing your chip in reverse? That's weird. I mean, Babylon 5 did it. Babylon 5 is Ming's favorite. But it's not like they were slamming it in reverse all the time. This isn't Demolition Derby, brother. So, no, I give this one the hot hell treatment as well. It could have been better. And maybe someday when I get to sit down at an actual machine, I'll enjoy it more.
Aaron, I am glad to hear you say that. But I have something to reveal. I'm not the Hurricane. I'm the Brent.
Oh no! Pump
And-
the math, please.
And the Brent has an obligation to
To wear a
spin
horrible hat.
to spin the wheel, Aaron.
What did
Let's
you add this week, the Brent?
oh my god, I just got hit by a Yeti.
He is not beautiful, but he is horrible.
We got the retro rewind piece. We're going back, Aaron. Back to the Commodore Pet.
The Commodore
The
Pet.
Commodore Pet, Aaron.
We were not. It wasn't too long ago when we played a visit to the Pet. So that'll be interesting because we actually found some pretty decent games on the Pet
Yeah.
the first go around.
Yeah, it will be fun to go back and have a little pet action.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to that, the Brent. That'll be a lot of fun. So that's our go at ARG Presents. In 2 weeks, we'll be looking at the Commodore Pet. But next week, Brent, we'll be coming back with another edition of R. Sinclair.
Yes.
It should be a lot of fun. I'm not even going to reveal the game right now.
You got to come back to know what it is or be on
I
Discord.
will reveal it in Discord. But next week, R. Sinclair, and then we'll be back with ARG Presents the Commodore Pet in 2 big weeks. Announcement-wise this week, the Brent, there's not a whole lot going on right now with BGW Wrestling canceled. But I will announce that this coming Saturday, as we record this and as it's released, it will be a happening. Everyone that's worth a darn in Taze Valley will descend into the boat's basement for another edition of the Taze Valley Classic Computer Club. It will be happening Saturday. I believe that thing's kicking off like 6 p.m. The Brent, so that should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, the day after Thanksgiving, we'll be coming back with Thanksgiving, our yearly gaming marathon with myself and the Brent. I'm looking forward to it this year. We're going to have access to all the colors of the rainbow.
Yes.
It should be a good time.
And we've got some little treats planned.
Do we?
Well, I have.
No one told me about this plan.
You're
I'm not happy.
You're secondary. And I think this was a fun week. I mean, it was actually a horrible week of playing games, but I had a lot of fun finding the game that I found.
Yes, it was a good one.
Anything else for the people?
No, I'm good to go.
All right. See you next week, folks.
Hot hell.
We want to thank our ARG supporters, Graham W. Vecchi, Laurent Garut, Andy Craig, Nitsuyama, Rollo, Jason Warrens, Oil of Hope, Terry Howard, Bitter Blitter, Kevin Bean, Andy Jones, Frodo NL, Bajako 6502, Rob Flack O'Hara, Oram, Brock 101, Chris Munch, Richard Smith, Retro Jerry, Petzel, Martin B, Nathan Danghart, Mario, Texas Foosballer, Dave Terrence, and Tommy Ciarella. Bye.